Okay, Houston Texans draft review here. Not going to talk about all the trades they made because we'd be here forever if we were doing that. Just simply reviewing the picks themselves, who they ended up with. Just so you know what you're looking at, the chart next to me, the first number is where the player was selected, then what position they play, then the player name, then the position they play, and then finally where they were projected to go according to the consensus big board. So let's just dive in with Jaden Higgins, their first pick. So first they trade back. We can talk about that. Always good to trade back out of the first round. I feel like teams tend to overvalue that a little bit. They got some pretty good value to trade back with the Giants, so only moving back 9 slots, but sometimes you get a bit more value than you would typically expect there, and still get a pretty good player, someone who they might have considered going with at pick 25, Jaden Higgins, a receiver who I really liked. I thought his tape was great. This is the guy who's 6'4", but he moves really well for his height. I kind of compared him to like a Mike Evans Jr. type, where I'm not sure if he's quite as big and quite as fast as Evans, but like there's like really similarities to those guys' game. And I do think Higgins can be just an outside receiver. With him on one side, Nico Collins on the other, and you get Tank Dell back, that could be pretty awesome. So yeah, I have a film study on him. Check that out if you want to hear more of my thoughts on him. They then went after Ariante Esseri, a guy who, never figured out how to say his name. Guy projected to go mid-second round. They get him mid-second round, so you're right along there. Couple good players here. They need to improve the offensive line. They do. Now, he's a bit of a projection. He is. I mean, the athletic boxes, he checks all of. He's 6'6", 330 pounds. He's strong. He does move well. I think you would like just more, like, advanced statistics. I think you'd like those to be a little bit better with him. He's not an analytics darling, so you might need a little bit of coaching up, we'll say. And he is 23 as well, so a bit of an older prospect. Those are kind of the two knocks and probably why he fell out of the first round. But still, for a second round player, you're not getting a lot better here than this. So, for an offensive lineman, because they do go so quickly. So definitely some logic behind this selection. Then there is Jalen Knoll, a player who was projected to go 60th. They get him 79th. Okay, that's pretty good. Pretty good value to go here. So you'll certainly take that. Jalen Knoll has great speed, and he's very shifty. He is also someone who's just noticeably small. This is a 5'11", 200-pound guy. So you're not getting a athletic freak from that perspective, but you have kind of Higgins and Knoll who could do two different things, right? Knoll is very explosive and, like I said, very shifty. Higgins is the guy who's more of a big body guy who's still pretty shifty, who can win on the outside. So ultimately, hey, they wanted some depth in the receiver room after injuries kind of derailed last year at that position, so getting more guys, I think it makes sense. We then had a couple of, we'll just say, head scratchers here with their next couple of picks. You see where these players are projected on the consensus big board. Jalen Smith projected 220th, so really he was kind of projected to be maybe a special teams guy who you hope could be depth defensively, as he's a smaller corner, 5'11", 190. Although I will say he is coming off of a very good season at USC, so he did have production. So while he might not have elite athleticism on top of not having enough elite build, there is reason to like him, and these are usually the prospects I like to go after. It is a bit early, you would think, right? Usually you go after these guys in the 6th round, not with pick 97, so bit curious there. Then I go after Woody Marks, who was not on the consensus big board, so okay, not sure exactly what that's about, but ultimately a player who isn't the most explosive running back you'll see. Also is just 5'10", 208 pounds. Did have some production again at USC, so maybe they did some USC scouting and think they found some diamonds in the rough. A little bit weird the timing of these selections though. They then went out and got a different Jalen Reed, who is a safety, more of a physical safety, despite only being 6'1", 212 pounds. A guy who definitely, hey, he's on the other side of the consensus big board, which I should mention, that doesn't necessarily mean everything, right? There are oftentimes players who don't aren't great on the consensus big board, but become great players. Of course, every year that happens, but it doesn't always happen, right? And usually that board tends to be more accurate than the actual draft order. So that's why I tend to bring that up. But yeah, Reed should be, again, a solid depth player for the Houston Texans. They then went with Graham Mernitz out of Florida, a player who only played 198 snaps last year, but has had some other years of solid sample size, and is ultimately someone who I think you're looking at a potential Brock Purdy with him, of which for a backup, because you have Stroud, that's all you really need. Tends to be pretty good when things are going well, although people talk about Brock Purdy, I think, incorrectly, because Graham here tends to be, good in structure, but once things break down, not the best. Doesn't have a huge arm, so you're not going to get that. Purdy might not have the big arm. Purdy's actually great when a play breaks down. That's kind of why he fits the Shanahan scheme so well. He can run the Shanahan scheme, but then he does really well when a play breaks down. But you might not necessarily be getting that here. So, bit of a curious choice again for a guy who is projected to go 340th, which is well past when the draft ends, getting him at 197. They then drafted Keontae Hamilton, pick 224, who again projected to go undrafted here, but congratulations to him. He does ultimately get drafted. He's a player who, he's a bit undersized, you would look at, 295, not massively so, has a lot of nice footwork and moves well, but has yet to translate that into pass rush, so that's why he falls so far. But for pick 224, let's draft and develop a guy. It could work out. Not a horrible idea. And then finally, 255th, hey, you have, another Iowa tight end getting drafted. However, people do not consider him to be a real NFL level athlete or NFL level production. You have to wonder if it is simply just he has the build at 6'6", 247, and also is just someone who should be a special teamer at pick 255. It's the third to last selection. You're not getting a superstar here. If you can get someone who can stick on the roster, well, you'll take that. So yeah, as a whole, definitely some curious choices. I really like the top part of the draft. I think as we got a little bit towards the middle, I have some questions. Again, I'm sure they have a reason, but I can only say what I can see, and I can't fully see it. But as a whole, yeah, I mean, some interesting picks here, and not a terrible draft. Definitely some picks I like. But yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.